think the first challenge is where the climate is changing now. So we are studying where temperatures, especially maximum temperatures, have risen already, that especially is the north and the Pacific coast. So there's where we have to hurry because there is climate change, observed climate change. That's the first issue. The second issue is the multiple sectors and regions that we have, and we are one of the mega biodiverse countries. So that's a challenge and also a compromise thinking globally because we are in charge of a huge number of biodiversity ecosystems. So it's complex. It's very complex to deal with it, thinking in terms of biodiversity or biophysical variables, but also in terms of cultures, because in Mexico we have great indigenous traditions and knowledge, and we also have huge urban zones like Mexico City. So that's another culture if you think it in that way. So it's contrasting and it's huge. Yes, a huge problem. Yeah.
I mean, how separate can adaptation be to just fundamental development in countries that are steadily growing?
No, well, adaptation shouldn't be separated from development. That's one of the first issues we want to highlight. We think we will have great troubles developing not only economically but also cultural and educational problems if we don't include or make synergies between sustainable development and adaptation.
And can you explain to me why people think it's so important to have adaptation as one of these parts of these national contributions that some countries are supposed to make next year? Why is that such a big issue?
Well, for Mexico, it's a very huge issue. We have decided to put 50% of the budget related to climate change to adaptation. And the first answer is what I just mentioned. Climate is already changing for us. So we have to hurry and do adaptation actions regarding agriculture, water resources, and human health and urban regions. So yes, we have to hurry to do adaptation plans, actions, strategies, meaning we have to change practices, processes, and perhaps we have to make structural changes. Institutions, they have to change if we are going to adapt.
And can you tell me a bit about the level of public awareness there is around climate change in Mexico? Because I guess that's also part of the issue. If people don't really understand what's happening, they're going to be less inclined to either make personal efforts, or they'll be a bit confused when certain extreme weather events happen, if they do with more regularity. So what's the level of public awareness, and how are you aiming to sort of get your message out?
Well, in the regions where climate is already changing, that's a great step of public awareness. And the second part is the perception of change. We have to study that to decide what actions and how people will get involved in the adaptation actions. We don't do adaptation as a decree, but like bottom up. We need what people are doing if they are spontaneously adapting, and what are their proposals. So I think public awareness is high, particularly in the young people. I think it's different, the education when I study, and the young people now are pretty aware of biodiversity and of the climate issues. I think it's another generation.
And just a final point, in previous conferences, Latin America and Central America are part of different negotiating groups. So Mexico is part of the Environmental Integrity Group, and Brazil kind of stands by itself, and you've got ALBA and ALAC. It seems from maybe someone looking in from outside that the Latin American countries seem to be coming a bit closer together perhaps just for this conference. Is that something that you feel being, more inside one of those groups, that there is more of a sense of unity amongst all those countries here in Peru?
Yes, I'm pretty sure that's happening, not only in ILAC and other dialogues we have with other Central American, Caribbean countries and Latin American countries, but we are working together. We are constructing networks of research because we are working on climate change scenarios, observe climate change, and we share biodiversity, and we share a lot of economical and social problems. So yes, I think there's a great opportunity for us in this conference and in the technical and science field.
And in terms of Mexico and the question about gender and climate, give me a sense about how this issue is being dealt with from a Mexican perspective.
Well, in Mexico, we have in our development national plan our climate change law and our special programs on climate change, the issue of gender as a cross-cutting issue. We think equity and human rights has to be included because it's a very important issue. We don't think adaptation or mitigation alone. We have to make synergies, but every action on the mitigation field or the adaptation field have to look on equity. We don't want winners and losers, and being women or children or indigenous people the losers of a climate adaptation action or a mitigation action. So we are very aware of equity in every action we want to do regarding adaptation actions in Mexico.